Welcome Ryan Winter to Wordle with Gaga.
Gaga grumps says hi there Oscar and Ryan, nice to see you.
Now tap that screen. Now tap that screen. Gang gremlins on the scene.
Grump says welcome one, welcome all.
Welcome gremlins to the game grotto. Welcome gremlins to the game grotto. Welcome in guys, settle down.
Gaga grumps says welcome gremlins to the game grotto. Take a seat, grab your daily heart, claim your points and prepare to play.
It's your warm-up routine. Gang gremlins on the scene. Gang gremlins on the scene.
Welcome Muslin to Wordle with Gaga.
Gang gremlins on the scene. Gang gremlins on the scene. Now tap that screen. Tap it, tap that screen. Yeah, tap it, tap it. Gang gremlins come and let's go. Now tap that screen. Tap it, tap that screen. Yeah, tap it. Let's see those team stickers flow.
Gaga grumps says Miss LHYN in the house.
Now tap that screen. Now tap that screen. Now tap that screen. Gang gremlins on the scene.
Gaga grumps says who's ready to Wordle with Gaga. Claire says hey everyone, heart hands. Gaga grumps says Claire in the house. Gaga grumps says what letter will the wheel choose? Predictions in the chat now. Gaga grumps says oh goody, the wheel is on one of those days. We are starting with A. V.
Rabbit says hello.
Gaga grumps says leaderboard reset incoming. Tap those screens. The one wearing the crown at the end of the song chooses the first word.
Welcome Rabbit to Wordle with Gaga. Grump says it rabbit higher.
Gaga grumps says rabbit in the house.
Like a thumb, race to the top. Like a thumb, tap and don't stop.
Welcome Rabbit to Wordle with Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says want to steal the starting word. Send the ranking crown and snipe the list. Gaga Grumps says I've given you the beat, now let's see your fingers dance.
Mum says vouch.
Welcome Summer to Wordle with Gaga.
Benjamin is in the house.
Gaga Grumps says MMKH in the house.
Mum says WSPP.
Join us.
Gaga Grumps says your word starting with V, please, Ryan. Gaga Grumps says thanks for doing your daily heart MMKH.
Mum says NP.
Summer says hello, hello.
Gaga Grumps says vault you got.
Grumps says it's Summer Haya.
Isabella says venue. Gaga Grumps says treasure box up if you need a coin for your daily heart. Summer says at Grumps, hey, how are you?
Mum says larva. Claire Ellis says gavel.
Welcome ISABELLA to
Isabella says
Wordle with
lava.
Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says nice start. We have a greener living at number 2 and AV and L in need of homes.
Grumps says it's Summer I feel like Sunday, you.
Gaga Grumps says lava fits.
Mum says larva gavel half.
Summer says at Grumps in good.
Gaga Grumps says V lives at number 4.
Mum says have.
Isabella says calve.
Summer says have.
Claire Ellis says have.
Isabella says carve.
Mum says calve have salvo.
Gaga Grumps says halve works.
Fireworks for Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says we're starting with fireworks.
Explode 'em on her face. She's in a happy place. Fireworks for Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says Wordle in 3. Let's see those fireworks. Gifts and emojis will explode on Gaga's face.
Emojis make her happy. As in her face they slappy. Fireworks for Gaga. Fireworks for Gaga. From a single rose to a whole bouquet. Anything will be okay. If you can dance, okay. Smiley zigzag still win the day. Fireworks for Gaga.
We would be honored
Fireworks
if you
for
would join us.
Gaga. Fireworks for Gaga. Fireworks for
Gaga
Gaga.
Grumps says GG Gremlins. Let's see those W's in the chat.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Gaga Grumps says thanks for doing your daily heart, Summer. Gaga Grumps says
We
thanks
would be
for doing your
honored
daily heart, Claire.
if you would join us.
Gaga Grumps says thanks for doing your daily heart, 19J.
One 9JWS97 says at Gaga and Grumps, no worries.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Gaga Grumps says I added a bunch of new fan stickers today and they all have sound effects. So check them out and use them at the right moment. Gaga Grumps says if you haven't done it yet, grab your daily heart while I set up the next grid.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Nope.
Gaga Grumps says thanks for doing your daily heart, Rabbit and Precious.
Precious says happy Sunday.
Gaga Grumps says let's play Wordle. Gaga Grumps says back at ya, Precious. Gaga Grumps says what letter will the wheel choose? Predictions in the chat now.
Precious says Hard Rabbit didn't know I had one of those.
Sunshine Katie says yummy.
Gaga Grumps says we are starting with A. Why?
Benjamin is in the house.
Gaga Grumps says Katie in the house. Gaga Grumps says leaderboard reset incoming. Tap those screens. The one wearing the crown at the end of the song chooses the first word.
Peanuts here!
Like a thong, race to the top, like a thon. Tap and don't stop, like a thon. Who will be crowned like a thon? Gremlin renowned, like a thon. Fingers on fire, like
Gaga Grumps says want to steal the starting word. Send the ranking crown and snipe the list. Gaga Grumps says I've given you the beat, now let's see your fingers dance. Gaga Grumps says your word starting with Y please Ryan. Gaga Grumps says thanks for doing your daily heart, Katie.
Ryan Winter 64 says yield.
Gaga Grumps says use the level up sticker to let me know if you or anyone else levels up in the fan club. Gaga Grumps says yield you got. Gaga Grumps says a yellow eye in need of a home.
Precious says shift.
Welcome Spider-Man to Wordle with Gaga. Ryan Winter 64 says smolt.
Claire Ellis says shirt.
Ryan Winter 64 says shift.
Gaga Grumps says use the stop, peanuts, sticker to let me know if a word I say fits doesn't fit.
Sunshine Katie says birth.
Gaga Grumps says shift fits.
Nope.
Gaga Grumps says we have a streak of greens and none of them are neighbors.
Precious says skirt X.
Ryan Winter 64 says swirl.
Gaga Grumps says skirt is a shout. Gaga Grumps says no change.
Precious says saint.
Welcome to Wordle with Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says no R or L for swirl.
Ryan Winter 64 says saint.
Gaga Grumps says saint works.
Precious says stint.
Gaga
Welcome Killian
Grumps
to
says
Wordle with
close but
Gaga.
no.
Ryan Winter 64 says stint.
Gaga Grumps says I forgot about reusing the T-lol.
Precious says it, Gaga and Grumps, so did I.
Good
It's playtime! Gaga is in the box!
Gaga Grumps says GG Gremlins. Let's see those W's in chat.
Grumps is on the buttons! Don't let him push yours! Are you ready to play? Let those stickers fly! Which team are you on? Team Gaga, give a cheer. Team Grumps, are you here? Team Gaga, are you ready?
Gaga Grumps says doo-doo for Gaga. Share the live chat for chat and shout out the roses and GGs. Gaga Grumps says Blossom in the house.
Blossom BXC says hi.
Gaga Grumps says thanks for doing your daily heart, Blossom.
Good game.
Gaga Grumps says if you haven't done it yet, grab your daily heart while I set up the next grid. Gaga Grumps says let's play Wordle. Gaga Grumps says what letter will the wheel choose? Predictions in the chat now. Gaga Grumps says hey there FC, welcome.
Welcome Esther Michela to Wordle with Gaga.
Level up. Zombie XE says, what are these?
Thanks for the follow.
Gaga Grumps says we are starting with A. H. Gaga Grumps says new stickers Blossom. All with sound effects. BL0SSOMVXZ says also. Gaga Grumps says leaderboard reset incoming. Tap those screens. The one wearing the crown at the end of the song chooses the first word.
BL0SSOMVXZ says that Gaga and Grumps repeat.
Like a thong, race to the top, like a thon. Tap and don't stop, like a thon. Who will be crowned like a thon? Gremlin renowned, like a thon. Fingers on fire,
Nope.
like a thon. Gremlins don't tire, like
Grumps says at FC_Dino_main_T.
Gaga Grumps says want to steal the starting word. Send the ranking crown and snipe the list. Gaga Grumps says I've given you the beat, now let's see your fingers dance. Gaga Grumps says your word starting with H, please, Katie.
BLOSOMBXZ says congrats.
Gaga Grumps says yay Blossom.
Sunshine Katie says heart.
Gaga Grumps says heart you got. Gaga Grumps says I can only go on the ranking I see, I'm afraid FC.
BLOSOM VXZ says bride.
Gaga Grumps says yellow E and R in need of a home.
Ryan Winter 60 for says breed.
Gaga Grumps says bride fits.
Sunshine Katie says bread.
Ryan Winter 64 says tribe.
Gaga Grumps says we have a partial anagram. Gaga Grumps says can't be tribe.
Precious says fiber.
Sunshine Katie says fiber.
Ryan Winter 64 says fiber.
BLOSOM VXZ says liber.
Gaga Grumps says fiber is a good shout.
BL0SOM VXZ says liber fiber.
Gaga Grumps says you know what time it is.
Fireworks for Gaga. It's summer for Miss Annie. Explode 'em on her face. She's in a happy place. Fireworks for
Gaga
Gaga.
Grumps says Wordle in 3. Let's see those fireworks. Gifts and emojis will explode on Gaga's face.
Emojis make her happy.
BLOSOM VXZ says with you.
Face be slappy. Fireworks for Gaga. Fireworks for Gaga. From a single rose to a whole bouquet. Anything will be okay. If you can, that's okay. Smileys in chat still win the day. Fireworks for Gaga. Fireworks for
Gaga Grumps says GG Gremlins.
Good game.
Let's see those W's in the
Good
chat.
game. Good game.
Fireworks for
Good
Gaga.
game. Good game.
BLOSOM VXZ says thanks.
Gaga Grumps says I can't see them Blossom, which are they? Gaga Grumps says if you haven't done it yet, grab your daily heart while I set up the next grid.
BLOSOM VXZ says that Gaga and Grumps, one says on the nose and the other says in the house.
Gaga Grumps says in the house is for when a fan club member or regular enters the room. I usually welcome them within the house.
BLO Som VXZ says at Gaga and Grumps okay.
Gaga Grumps says on the nose is for when someone guesses the wheel letter right.
BLO Some VXC says at Gaga and Grumps okay.
Gaga Grumps says level up is to let me know someone leveled up in fan club. Gaga Grumps says stop, peanuts is to stop me using a word that doesn't fit.
Well, some VXC says okay.
BLO Som VXD says thanks.
Gaga Grumps says let's play Wordle. Gaga Grumps says what letter will the wheel choose? Predictions in the chat now. Gaga Grumps says we are starting with A. C. Gaga Grumps says leaderboard reset incoming. Tap those screens. The one wearing the crown at the end of the song chooses the first word.
Race to the top like a thon. Tap and don't stop like a thon. Who will be crowned like a thon? Gremlin renowned.
Gaga Grumps says want to steal the starting word. Send the ranking crown and snipe the list.
Gremlins don't tire like a thon. Hearts be flying like a thon. Gremlins defying.
Gaga Grumps says I've given you the beat, now let's see your fingers dance. Gaga Grumps says your word starting with C please Ryan. Gaga Grumps says geez I've just seen the like goal. Tapping maniacs you are.
Ryan Winter 64 says court.
Gaga Grumps says court you got.
BL Som VXZ says at Ryan Winter 6 for good choice.
Gaga Grumps says a yellow sea in need of a home. Gaga Grumps says creative in the house.
BL Som VXZ says wacky.
Gaga Grumps says black fits.
Ryan Winter 64 says wacky.
Gaga Grumps says no change. Ryan Winter 64 says scene.
BL Som VXZ says scene is good shout.
Gaga Grumps says I agree Ryan. Gaga Grumps says we added a homeless E.
Ryan Winter 64 says DM.
Some VXZ says this is hard.
Usam VXZ says need a filler.
Sunshine Katie says match.
BLO Som VXZ says Cisco.
Welcome BW to Wordle with Gaga.
BLO Som VXZ says dicey.
Ryan Winter 60 for says Helic.
Ryan Winter 6 for says NVM.
BL0 Some VXZ says dicey.
Gaga Grumps says oh ethic and dicey are good.
BL Som VXZ says at G no T.
Ryan Winter 64 says AHIC.
DLO Som VXZ says at Gaga and Grumps for ethic there is no T.
Ryan Winter 64 says Tipo.
BL Som VXZ says yes.
Good game.
Gaga Grumps says blossom with dicey. Gaga Grumps says GG Gremlins. Let's see those W's in the chat.
Good game.
Hello, Sam VXC says at Grumps. Hello, Grumps.
A creative one says yes.
A random star chosen by fate. Play a part, it's a live date.
Gaga Grumps says do you do the daily Wordle? I post mine on my page and would love you to share your results. Gaga Grumps says if you haven't done it yet, grab your daily heart while I set up the next word.
Below Som VXC says, what was today's Wordle?
A pretty sky. A Wordle with Gaga. A Wordle with Gaga. Da da da. A Wordle with Gaga. Ra ra da 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 da.
Grumps says at BL0SM.VXZ higher.
Gaga Grumps says I don't like to spoil it in case peeps haven't done it yet.
BLO Som VXC says at Grumps here.
Gaga Grumps says let's play Wordle.
BLO Som VXZ says at Gaga and Grumps okay.
Gaga Grumps says what letter will the wheel choose? Predictions in the chat now.
Som VXZ says see again.
Gaga Grumps says we are starting with A. See again. Gaga Grumps says leaderboard reset incoming. Tap those screens. The one wearing the crown at the end of the song chooses the first word.
Like a thumb, race to the top, like a thon. Tap and don't stop, like a thon. Who will be crowned like a thon? Gremlin renowned, like a thon. Fingers on fire, like a thon.
Gaga Grumps says want to steal the starting word. Send the ranking crown and snipe the list.
Level up.
Gaga Grumps says I've given you the beat, now let's see your fingers dance. Gaga Grumps says he leveled up.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Gaga Grumps says your word starting with C please Ryan.
Eggs and Bacon says at Gaga and Grumps hello, how are you?
LL Creative 1 says crate.
It's a L.
Ryan Winter 6 for says chose.
Guessed it wrong, you guessed it right.
Welcome Eggs and Bacon to Wordle with Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says with a quick secret of Blossom's milestone.
This level's ours, come out with me now. Green, green, look at that glow.
Blow some VXC says tie.
Jamming is in the house. Came in, yes, it's snap. Level up.
Gaga Grumps says eggs in the house.
New fandom level, streak still alive. Wordle solved and you help me thrive. Tomorrow we guess, same time, same chat, same brilliant brains. Remember that.
Gaga Grumps says chose you got.
Blossom VXZ says stock.
Ryan Winter 60 for says spoon.
Gaga Grumps says a Greeno lives at number 3 Wordle Street. S needs a home.
BL0 some VXZ says stow.
Gaga Grumps says thanks for doing your daily heart eggs.
Usam VXZ says NVM.
Peanuts here!
BLO Som VXZ says sport.
Gaga Grumps says stock fits. Ryan Winter 64 says no tea.
Ryan Winter 64 says no, C.
Blossom VXC says no C.
Ryan Winter 64 says spoon.
BLO Some VXZ says sport.
Gaga Grumps says good use of peanuts. Gaga Grumps says sport cause I don't want to run 00 yet.
Eggs and Bacon says spoon.
Ryan Winter 64 says you're the boss lol.
Gaga Grumps says ha Wordle
Welcome a
loves to
tough
prove me wrong,
JHIT
doesn't
to
it?
Wordle with Gaga.
Blossom VXZ says spoon.
Exam Bacon says get ready for fireworks for Gaga.
Creative 1 says spool.
Welcome TTV No Limit to Wordle with
Exam
Gaga.
Bacon says get ready for fireworks for Gaga.
Gaga
Welcome
Grumps
Bubs
says
to
spoon
Wordle with
to check
Gaga.
for fireworks. Then possible filter. BL0SSOMVXZ says spook spoon.
Fireworks for Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says fireworks for Ryan.
It's a performance in it. Explode
Ryan
on her
Winter
face,
64
she's in a
says
happy
could have it
place.
in 2.
Fireworks for Gaga. Wordle within 3, so gifts explode with glee.
Gaga Grumps says GG Gremlins. Let's see those W's in the chat. Gaga Grumps says yep, I stole your two, sorry Ryan.
Good game.
Fireworks for Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says if you haven't done it yet, grab your daily heart while I set up the next grid. Gaga Grumps says let's play Wordle. Gaga Grumps says what letter will the wheel choose? Predictions in the chat now. Gaga Grumps says we are starting with A. H. Gaga Grumps says leaderboard reset incoming. Tap those screens. The one wearing the crown at the end of the song chooses the first word.
Like a thong, race to the top, like a thon. Tap and don't stop, like a thon. Who will be crowned like a
Gaga
thon?
Grumps says want to steal the starting word. Send the ranking crown and snipe the list. Gaga Grumps says I've given you the beat, now let's see your fingers dance. Gaga Grumps says your word starting with H, please Ryan.
Ryan Winter 64 says horse.
Gaga Grumps says horse you got.
Exan Bacon says shown.
Ryan Winter 64 says shown. Will Creative 1 says show.
Gaga Grumps says HO and S all in need of homes. Gaga Grumps says shown fits. Gaga Grumps says shush and O all turned green.
A creative one says shuck.
Ryan Winter 64 says shout.
KHALEY says shout.
Gaga Grumps says shock is in the grid. Will I steal Ryan's fireworks?
Welcome KHALEY to Wordle with Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says is shout in with a shout.
Welcome Arabu 6 SEVEN to Wordle with Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says I am so sorry, Ryan.
Welcome gremlins to the game grotto. Welcome in, guys. Settle down. Grab your heartbeat. Share us round. Now tap
Gaga
that
Grumps
screen,
says
tap
GG
that
Gremlins.
screen,
Let's see those W's in the chat.
Gang gremlins on the scene. 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 Now tap that screen. Tap it, tap it, tap that screen. Yeah, tap it, tap it.
Gaga Grumps says welcome Gremlins to the game grotto. Take a seat, grab your daily heart, claim your points and prepare to play.
Let's see those team stickers flow. Gang gremlins on the scene. Now tap that screen. Now tap that
Gaga Grumps says treasure box up if you need a coin for your daily heart.
Now tap that screen.
Gaga Grumps says if you haven't done it yet, grab your daily heart while I set up the
Gang
next grid.
gremlins on the scene.
Gaga Grumps says let's play Wordle. Gaga Grumps says what letter will the wheel choose? Predictions in the chat now.
Well, Creative One says, Ryan, you got some super tapping fingers today.
Gaga Grumps says we are starting with a T. Gaga Grumps says leaderboard reset incoming. Tap those screens. The one wearing the crown at the end of the song chooses the first word.
Like-a-thon, race to the top, like-a-thon, tap and don't stop, like-a-thon, who will be crowned, like-a-thon, gremlin renowned, like-a-thon, fingers on fire, like-a-thon, gremlins don't tire,
Gaga Grumps says want to steal the starting word. Send the ranking crown and snipe the list. Gaga Grumps says I've given you the beat, now let's see your fingers dance. Gaga Grumps says your word starting with T, please, Ryan.
Ryan Winter 64 says taser.
Gaga Grumps says someone will have to use the ranking crown to topple this king. Gaga Grumps says taser you got. Gaga Grumps says will have to be with an S.
Ryan Winter 64 says treat.
It's a Wordle wipeout. No letters to shout.
Gaga Grumps says wipeouts in the chat.
Lost in the grid, can't figure
Ryan Winter 64 says angry.
Ryan Winter 64 says lymph.
Welcome Layla to Wordle with Gaga. Grumps says about time we had one of those.
Eggs and Bacon says pulley. The Creative One says Minky.
Gaga Grumps says first wipeout of the day. Now bring on my fireworks. Gaga Grumps says limp fits.
Grumps says treasure box is open.
Well, Creative One says to many letters floppy.
Gaga Grumps says a yellow Y in need of a home. Gaga Grumps says floppy is 6 letters.
Creative One says yacht.
Ryan Winter 64 says young.
Thanks for the follow.
Gaga Grumps says Young works. Gaga Grumps says thanks for following Layla. Gaga Grumps says O moved into number 2, Y and G need homes.
Ryan Winter 64 says Hoofy.
Ryan Winter 64 says Goofy. Exand Bacon says Goofy is a good shout.
Gaga Grumps says I was thinking Foggy. Same letters, different order lol.
Good game.
Gaga Grumps says Ryan is on a roll today.
Guys in the box. Don't let her lose.
Gaga Grumps says GG Gremlins. Let's see those W's in the chat.
Don't let him push yours. Are you ready to play? Let those stickers fly. Which team are you on? Team Gaga, give a cheer. Team Grumps.
Ryan Winter 6 versus GGGGWWW.
Gaga Grumps says do to Gaga. Share the live chat and shower her with roses and GGs. Gaga Grumps says if you haven't done it yet, grab your daily heart while I set up the next year. Gaga Grumps says Samrat in the house. Gaga Grumps says let's play Wordle. Gaga Grumps says what letter will the wheel choose? Predictions in the chat now. Gaga Grumps says we are starting with A. J. Gaga Grumps says leaderboard reset incoming. Tap those screens. The one wearing the crown at the end of the song chooses the first word.
Welcome Mason G to Wordle with Gaga.
Race to the top like a thorn. Tap and don't stop like
Gaga Grumps says want to steal the starting word. Send the ranking crown and snipe the list. Gaga Grumps says hi there Mason. Gaga Grumps says I've given you the beat, now let's see your fingers dance. Gaga Grumps says your word starting with J, please Ryan. Gaga Grumps says hi THIDK. Gaga Grumps says if your word is being filtered, try I'd like word.
Creative One says joust.
Ryan Winter 64 says J, U, I, C, Y.
Gaga Grumps says still alive Ryan. Gaga Grumps says juicy you got.
Welcome Jack the best go to Wordle with Gaga.
Ryan Winter 64 says yes I am.
Grumps says at Mason G it's Ryan's turn, don't spam.
Ryan Winter 64 says alley.
Gaga Grumps says a green Y lives at number 5 Wordle Street. Gaga Grumps says Mason you've been here long enough to know how we play LOL.
A Creative One says party.
Gaga Grumps says I don't do words for letters unless the board dictates is. Gaga Grumps says party is in the grid. Gaga Grumps says I need a party song.
Ryan Winter 64 says woolly.
Gaga Grumps says no change. 8 letters out of the game. Gaga Grumps says Woolly works.
Welcome Emma to Wordle with Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says and money still works.
Ryan Winter 64 says okay, I'm retiring all.
Gaga Grumps says lol lost your touch Ryan.
Well, Creative One says filler.
A Creative One says foggy.
Gaga Grumps says I think it must be a double letter before Y. So what are our options?
The Creative One says foggy.
Ryan Winter 64 says fudge.
A Creative One says do fudge as filler.
Gaga Grumps says yeah we should filter
Welcome
here to try
Sophie
and
to
narrow it
Wordle with
down.
Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says sorry hit enter instead of delete. Gaga Grumps says messed that one up completely.
Ryan Winter 60 for says no G no L.
Ryan Winter 64 says no T.
Gaga Grumps says I see bossy.
Ryan Winter 64 says no O.
Well, Creative One says hobby.
Ryan Winter 64 says bossy Hanbi.
Ryan Winter 64 says hobby.
Gaga Grumps says I'm putting a poll up. Smiley face bossy. Crying face hobby.
Well, Creative One says hobby.
Crystal says good morning. Welcome Crystal to Wordle with Gaga. Grumps says it. Crystal, welcome back.
Gaga Grumps says smiley face bossy crying face hobby.
Crystal says, oh no, this is what I lost my 100,000 streak to.
Gaga Grumps says hobby got it.
Crystal says my word was nobly though.
Gaga Grumps says I messed this one up. Crystal. Hit enter instead of delete and lost a guess.
Well, Creative One says can't be that.
Gaga Grumps says guess what, we lost the 50-50 and it wasn't even my choice.
No letters to shout. Wipe out. Oh no, wipe out. Lost in the grid, can't figure it out. Wipe out. Oh no, wipe out.
Crystal says I have done that. We are human and are allowed to make mistakes.
Gaga Grumps says and I need to do a Crystal in the house. Gaga Grumps says if you haven't done it yet, grab your daily heart while I set up the next grid.
Crystal says at LL Creative One I was saying my word I lost with.
Gaga Grumps says let's play Wordle.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Gaga Grumps says I decided to use quick polls to get me out of 50-50s and it made no difference lol. Gaga Grumps says what letter will the wheel choose? Predictions in the chat now. Gaga Grumps says thanks for doing your daily heart, Crystal. Gaga Grumps says we are starting with A. S. Gaga Grumps says leaderboard reset incoming. Tap those screens. The one wearing the crown at the end of the song chooses the first word.
Like a thong, race to the top, like a thon. Tap and don't stop, like a thon. Who will be crowned like a thon? Gremlin renowned.
Gaga Grumps says want to steal the starting word. Send the ranking crown and snipe the list. Gaga Grumps says I've given you the beat, now let's see your fingers dance.
Everybody get down! It's a freaking sniper!
Gaga Grumps says Ryan, you've been sniped.
Ryan Winter 64 says finger was down before snipe lol.
Crystal says it delayed. Gaga Grumps says doesn't matter, it came before I announced lol.
Crystal says let Ryan go.
Ryan went to 60 for says lol.
Gaga Grumps says no. He's had every word this live lol. Crystal says salty.
Ryan Winter 64 says at Crystal ho ahead.
Grumps says at Crystal that's not how it works, there's an HR procedure.
Gaga Grumps says salty you got.
It's a Wordle wipeout. No letters to shout.
Gaga Grumps says wipeouts in the chat.
Crystal says that Grumps got it.
Grumps says what an entry. Grumps says a snipe well spent.
Ryan Winter 64 says hinge.
Gaga Grumps says hinge fits.
Grumps says oh, nearly.
Gaga Grumps says a yellow N in need of a home. 9 letters wiped from the game.
Welcome the gorilla to Wordle with Gaga. Welcome Jesse to Wordle with Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says drunk works. Nice entrance, Jesse.
Crystal says pound.
Gaga Grumps says R lives at number 2 Wordle Street N homeless.
Ryan Winter 64 says brown.
Gaga Grumps says O our only vowel. Gaga Grumps says would I have had fireworks?
Welcome Lily to Wordle with Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says no I wouldn't. Crystal says crown.
Ryan Winter 64 says crown.
Ryan Winter 64 says frown.
Gaga Grumps says ha we have to try crown for the snipe game, don't we? Crystal says decaf.
Welcome MR Shadow to Wordle with Gaga.
Ryan Winter 64 says yes.
Gaga Grumps says 2 choices 2 guesses were good.
Welcome to Wordle with Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says oh that would have been serendipity.
Good.
Gaga Grumps says GG Gremlins. Let's see those W's in the chat.
Good game. 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 Good game.
Gaga Grumps says do you do the daily Wordle? I post mine on my page and would love you to share your results.
Grumps says a crystal decaf.
Gaga Grumps says thanks for the GG's crystal.
do or die, only in three.
Gaga Grumps says if you haven't done it yet, grab your daily heart while I set up the next word.
A Wordle with Gaga. A Wordle with Gaga. Da da da. A Wordle with Gaga. Ra ra da 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 da.
Gaga Grumps says let's play Wordle.
Grumps says at Crystal never mind, my brain caught up.
Crystal says at Grumps filler, I always get nervous. Gaga Grumps says what letter will the wheel choose? Predictions in the chat now. Gaga Grumps says we are starting with A. Why? Gaga Grumps says I got my new on the nose sticker and nobody has got it on the nose. Gaga Grumps says leaderboard reset incoming. Tap those screens. The one wearing the crown at the end of the song chooses the first word.
Like a thong, race to the top. Like a thon, tap and don't stop. Like a thon, who will be crowned? Like a thon.
Gaga Grumps says want to steal the starting word. Send the ranking crown and snipe the list.
Gremlins don't tire like a thon. Hearts beat flying like a thon. Gremlins defying.
Gaga Grumps says I've given you the beat, now let's see your fingers dance.
Everybody get down! It's a freaking sniper!
Crystal says Ryan Danhal.
Gaga Grumps says Ryan being sniped again. Gaga Grumps says your word starting with Y please Grumps.
Grumps says yodel.
Gaga Grumps says record breaking like goal woot. Gaga Grumps says yodel you got. Gaga Grumps says Yellow E in need of a home.
Welcome Fully Iron to Wordle with Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says Serum fits nice entrance Lena. Gaga Grumps says hi Fully. Gaga Grumps says we added a homeless R to our E.
Ryan Winter 60 for says Brian.
Grumps says hello everyone.
Gaga Grumps says Brian works. Gaga Grumps says R lives at number 2.
Ryan Winter 60 for says erect.
Crystal says erect.
Gaga Grumps says I like. Tests both places for the E if not correct. Gaga Grumps says E lives at number 3.
Ryan Winter 60 for Cesaric.
Gaga Grumps says awesome Lena. Gaga Grumps says GG's for Lena.
Welcome gremlins to the game grotto. Welcome in guys. Settle down.
Good game.
Grab your heartbeat.
Gaga Grumps says GG Gremlins. Let's see those W's in the chat.
Yeah, tap it, tap it. It's your warm-up routine. Game gremlins on the scene.
Gaga Grumps says welcome Gremlins to the game grotto. Take a seat, grab your daily highs, claim your points and prepare to play.
Game gremlins on the scene. Now tap that screen. Tap it, tap it, tap that screen. Yeah, tap it, tap it. Game gremlins come and let's go. Now tap that screen. Tap it, tap it, tap that screen. Yeah, tap it, tap it. Let's see those team stickers flow.
Good game.
Game gremlins on the scene.
Good game.
Gaga Grumps says if you haven't done it yet, grab your daily heart while I set up the next one.
Good game. Good game. Good game. Good game.
Now tap that screen. Gang gremlins on the scene.
Good game.
Gaga Grumps says treasure box up if you need a coin for your daily heart. Gaga Grumps says I don't want anyone to miss out on fan club for want of a penny. So grab yours from the treasure box. Gaga Grumps says let's play Wordle. Gaga Grumps says what letter will the wheel choose? Predictions in the chat now.
Grumps says at Isaac higher.
Gaga Grumps says we are starting with A. I.
Benjamin is in the house.
Gaga Grumps says Isaac in the house. Gaga Grumps says no problem Isaac. Gaga Grumps says leaderboard reset incoming. Tap those screens. The one wearing the crown at the end of the song chooses the first word.
Welcome YOLO, GG. Saluting face to Wordle with Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says wants to steal the starting word. Send the ranking crown and snipe the list. Gaga Grumps says I've given you the beat, now let's see your fingers dance. Gaga Grumps says woohoo, we have a new king.
Crystal says well lol.
Gaga Grumps says your word starting with I please Isaac and with your own initial too. Gaga Grumps says ingot you got.
Ryan Winter 60 for says nice.
Gaga Grumps says a yellow N in need of a home.
Crystal says I thought of sipping but got caught up watching the race.
Gaga Grumps says lol.
Ryan Winter 60 for says dandy.
Gaga Grumps says prank fits. Gaga Grumps says we added a homelesser to our N.
Crystal says dandy.
Gaga Grumps says dandy still works I think. Gaga Grumps says nearly very nearly.
Precious says Candy Sandy.
Benjamin is in the house.
Precious says handy.
Gaga Grumps says libs in the house. Gaga Grumps says filter needed.
Precious says Chubb's filler.
Ryan Winter 60 for says Shab. Precious says Sandy it is.
Gaga Grumps says Sandy it is.
Ryan Winter 64 says Sandy.
It's playtime! Gaga is in the box!
Thanks for the follow!
Gaga Grumps says GG Gremlins. Let's see those W's in the chat.
Welcome Diars, EVITZ to Wordle with Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says thanks for following Dials. Gaga Grumps says Oodaboo for Gaga. Share the live, chat the chat and shower her with roses and GGs.
Grumps says treasure box is open.
Good game. Let's go. Good game.
Gaga Grumps says yep, last grid coming up.
Good game.
Crystal says I need these stickers, love them. Gaga Grumps says thanks for the GGs and roses.
Good game. Good game. Good game. Good game.
Gaga
Good
Grumps
game.
says let's play Wordle.
Good game. Good game. Good game. Good game. Good game.
Gaga Grumps says
Good
what
game.
letter will the wheel choose? Predictions in the chat now.
Good game.
Gaga Grumps says we are starting with A. M. Gaga Grumps says leaderboard reset incoming. Tap those screens. The one wearing the crown at the end of the song chooses the first word.
Like a thong, race to the top, like a thon. Tap and don't stop, like a thon. Who will be crowned like a thon? Gremlin renowned, like a thon. Fingers on fire, like a thon. Gremlins don't tire, like a thon. Hearts beat
Gaga Grumps says want to steal the starting word. Send the ranking crown and snipe the list. Gaga Grumps says I've given you the beat, now let's see your fingers dance. Gaga Grumps says your word starting with M, please, Ryan. Gaga Grumps says hi there, Billy, welcome.
Ryan Winter 64 says mayor.
Gaga Grumps says and welcome, Oliver. Gaga Grumps says mayor you got. Gaga Grumps says Ryan won the word Billy.
Welcome Oliver right to Wordle with Gaga.
Ryan Winter 64 says candy.
Precious says salty.
Gaga Grumps says a green lives at number 2 and Y needs a home. Gaga Grumps says candy fits. Gaga Grumps says D and Y moved into 4 and 5.
Ryan Winter 64 says Daddy.
Precious says body.
Crystal says body.
Gaga Grumps says daddy for fireworks, then options.
Welcome Xavier Blocks to Wordle with Gaga.
Precious says Bawdy Gaudy is all I see.
Gaga Grumps says baldy. Bawdy, gaudy. 3 O'Brien's 3 guesses. Gaga Grumps says baldy tests for both balde and bawdy. Gaga Grumps says corgis on patrol. Gaga Grumps says bawdy it is.
Good game.
Gaga Grumps says someone missed out on fireworks for bawdy, didn't they? Gaga Grumps says Precious and Crystal, I'm sorry.
Good game.
Gaga Grumps says GG Gremlins. Let's see those W's in the chat.
Precious says it's fine, we had a few options.
Good game.
Gaga Grumps says thanks for joining me to play Wordle. I will be back at 4 p.m. UK tomorrow for more Wordle with Gaga.
Crystal says it's fine.
Crystal says I leveled up.
Gaga Grumps says, do you do the daily Wordle? I post mine on my page and would love you to share your results. Gaga Grumps says a quick segue for.
It's a LLL level up. I guessed it wrong, you guessed it right. Now here we are, another height. If support was letters, you'd spell wow. This level's ours, come out with me now. Green, green, look at that glow. Didn't solve Wordle solo though. Support came in, guess it snap. Level unlocked, shout out chat. New fandom level, streak still alive. Wordle solved and you helped me thrive. Tomorrow we guess, same time, same chat, same brilliant brains. Remember that.
Crystal says thank you.
Crystal says see you tomorrow.